As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for your perseverance. We apologize for the technical issues. Justin had something happen in the house, and he had to take care of that and did not realize as to what time it was. And so we're going to carry forth from this moment onward. And as I was covering and speaking about in the first segment, it is um, this is a continuation of our streams on expanding disclosure and helping people to understand where we are and to make sense of it scripturally. And so tonight I'm going to cover some of these things speaking from this perspective of the Sumerian as well as the Coleman Bible. Uh, Last night we did speak about and cover the oral traditions that were passed down to the African medicine man, the Sangoma Credo Mutwa, who has since passed on, but had shared really incredible insight with the world in regard to the ancient traditions and the oral mythologies which his people had been carrying and holding on to, that he was one of four wisdom keepers that was privileged to the knowledge that he has shared with us and of which I spoke about and read in great detail last night. I'm also going to at some point read about the mythology surrounding the motherland of what is called the continent of Mu. And this is something that is also a little known about, and it has to do with an individual named James Churchward, who was a student of the ancient manuscripts and a linguist, and had interest in looking at and studying and reading what was at that time ancient Hindu mythologies, which had been preserved on these clay tablets. And that having met this one individual who was a guardian of these scrolls, of these clay tablets, he was able to convince him to ascertain their condition and to bring them out and to look at them and to see how they were getting along. And in doing so, he was able to become an um, a student of this individual, and he was taught how to read these manuscripts, which not very many people had this knowledge. I think this individual was one of 4 caretakers that was given some portion to watch over. And so that is also an interesting story, and it covers the ancient narrative of how the fallen angels had established a culture in very ancient times, and how getting involved in magic, and as it says in the Emerald Tablets, that they were calling from the below these ancient entities and offering blood sacrifice in order to pull them into this world. And because of their involvement in black magic and sorcery, the Most High brought judgment against them that destroyed their land and sank the continent that they were living on. And people, often wonder and ask, well, what had happened to Atlantis and to these ancient cultures and civilizations which the fallen angels had established and lived in? They were mighty empires created of cyclopean megalithic structures and huge colossal stone blocks, and united in a manner that they should have lasted forever. But the Most High brought judgment against them and had the memory of them disappear, and ridded the conscience of the world, negated existence and the memory of these particular peoples. And so we're going to revisit some of that. And I'm going to share with you a passage from the Bible which gives a recollection, reminiscence of this time. It's from Jeremiah chapter 4. It says, I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void. This is, of course, speaking about, and it uses the same words as Genesis 1:2, where the earth was formless and vacancy. And in the Hebrew, again, it means that the earth became a deserted wasteland and an indistinguishable ruin. And lo, it was without form and void in the heavens, and they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens were fled. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord, and by his fierce anger. For thus hath the Lord said, the whole land shall be desolate, yet will I not make a full end. And so consider that this was a time when there was not yet man, as it also says in the Targum, when you read the Aramaic Targum about this particular time, which I should bring it up. so that you can know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no sense in bringing something up and then not sharing it. But okay, here we go. All right, so let me go to the very. It says this: at the beginning, min avela, the Lord created the heavens and the earth was vacancy and desolation, solitary of the sons of men, and void of every animal. And darkness was upon the face of the abyss. And the spirit of mercies from before the Lord breathed upon the face of the waters. In the Jerusalem Targum, it says, in wisdom the Lord created, and the earth was vacancy and desolation and solitary of the sons of men and void of every animal. And the spirit of mercies from before the Lord breathed upon the face of the waters. And the Lord said, let there be light to enlighten above. And at once there was light, and the Lord beheld the light that it was good. And the Lord divided between the light and the darkness. And the Lord called the light day, and he made it that the inhabitants of the world might labor by it. And the darkness called he night, and he made it that the creatures might have rest. And it was evening, and it was morning the first day. And so we see that the earth was vacancy, desolation, solitary of the sons of men. So let us go back to this verse here in Jeremiah. And it says, it was without form and void in the heavens, and they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heaven were fled. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord. So here we had not yet, man had humanity, the pre-Adamites in Genesis 1:26-28 had not been recreated and placed upon the earth to replenish it. The earth had become and was destroyed, and we see that the cities were broken down at the presence of the Lord. So if there was no man, what cities is Jeremiah speaking about? And of course, it is the cities of the fallen angels. And we see this same thing being reiterated and spoken about in Ezekiel as well. That in a, a judgment, a sentence against Tyrus, that the Most High also revealed what he had done to this ancient people, this ancient culture. It says, how art thou destroyed that was inhabited of seafaring men, the renowned city which was strong in the sea, she and her inhabitants, which caused their terror to be on all that haunt it. Now shall the isles tremble in the day of thy fall. Yea, the isles that are in the sea shall be troubled at thy departure. For thus saith the Lord God, when I shall make thee a desolate city, like the cities that are not inhabited, when I shall bring up the deep upon thee, and great waters shall cover thee, when I shall bring thee down with them that descend into the pit with the people of old time, and shall set thee in the low parts of the earth, in places desolate of old, with them that go down to the pit, that thou be not inhabited, and I shall set glory in the land of the living. I will make thee a terror, and thou shalt be no more. Though thou be sought for, yet shall thou never be found again, saith the Lord God. It's a, I'm not going to read it, but when you read that verse in the Aramaic Targum, it's even that much more interesting. But it is speaking again about the destruction of Atlantis, of Mu, which James Churchward in his book on the lost continent of Mu, he says that it was this destruction that destroyed in a single hour, in a single night, that the Most High brought judgment from above and below, and that Atlantis disappeared and became nothing more than memory. And it was this judgment which caused them, the people, to scatter in diaspora, and that they then broke up into, I believe it was 5 units, and they scattered. And in the Chronicles of Mu, one of the places that they ended up in was South America, and that the children of Enoch, or the children of Cain, which was Enoch, they came up in, I believe, Guatemala, where Tenochtitlan is, and also an ancient culture, civilization came up in India and Egypt, that the scroll, the emerald tablets of Thoth, they talk about the Atlanteans after the drowning of their city, the temple of Amente, that they went to the land of Kim, and they found a barbaric race settled and dwelling there. And they used their high technology to take over control and to subject these individuals to their power. And so when we come back from break, I will share with you a manuscript that I discovered in the Coleman Bible called the Scroll of Thoth, which is, it has to be in some manner connected with Thoth. Thothmes is what he's called in some of the other ancient traditions. But he was supposedly an Atlantean priest king, and also the builder of the pyramids, that he constructed the pyramids and had told the story of how their land was destroyed and how their people drowned and how they had to scatter. And he even cites in this text that they had and were able to leave in these flying machines, that they had technology which gave them the capacity to escape quickly and to propel themselves into the atmosphere where they would be safe. And another thing that is very intriguing about this story is that Thoth, he describes having buried this craft there beneath the pyramids. And so, is that true? Of course, we will never know. And if he had done so, is the craft, was it something of like a mothership which perhaps gave them the ability to dwell underground and to be comfortable? That's something to consider because, again, and this, like, is before the flood of Noah's day. And yet it's said that this catabo was caused by water and that it drowned, submerged these cities and also the continent, the landmass that was the motherland of Mu, or even the stories of Atlantis. And the tragedy, which I will read from, also presents in segment this same story. And so it is my belief that this is the cataclysm which elevated the sea levels and which hid so much of what was those ancient cultures, those ancient civilizations, that much of that world is now under the waters of the oceans. And that what we see as far as the archipelago, the different islands in the Pacific with Hawaii and Solomon Islands and other places like that, that all of these scattered islands, that at one time they had been unified by land and that they were all connected. And there was even said to be a bridge between India and Indonesia and some of those places. And that some of what we see with like the ancient ruins that are found in, what's the name of that? My kids went to go see this. They're near Laos and Vietnam. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that place. But it was also a huge ancient ruin and was said to be bigger than the city of London. And there are also ancient ruins that are now being found in the Amazon jungle, which had to have been created in very ancient times. And so this is also something we're going to talk about because it is connected to disclosure. It is connected to this story, in which most people have yet no under. Angor Watt, thank you, Adrian from Oz. I appreciate that. Yes, Angor Watt, and Rob also uh, said the same. Thank all of you in the chat room for your knowledge. Sometimes, just it eludes me. But we are 1 minute out from break, so we'll pick this up on the other side. And I'm glad that Justin was able to jump in and to connect y'all to the live stream, and that we are all sharing this platform, and that you can hear me, and that we're able to discuss and share these insights all together as family believers. And I thank you again. We'll be right back, everyone.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. And I thank all of you again for taking the time to be with us. We greatly appreciate and love all of you. Hello, Leanne, Bowles, Shay, Penny, and of course, Brick and Hebrew Hawaiian and Tammy George and all of our regulars. We greatly appreciate all of you as well. It's a wonderful family that has come to be part of this platform. All right. So what I wanted to cover is the Scroll of Thoth, where I told you that it will talk about and it will share and speak about the destruction of this island and what happened, or this continent, and how it was that they involved themselves in the black magic, the sorcery, and it was for that reason that punishment was brought upon them. And this is the same story that Plato speaks about, and same story that is covered in the Atlantean mythologies. But many of you have probably never heard of this Scroll of Thoth. And I did reach out to and received permission from Marshall Masters, who was one of the individuals that was entrusted with the Coleman Bible and was able to bring it to publication and introduce it to humanity for the first time. And I think this was like 2006 or something. But it took me an entire summer to read it. It's a very lengthy book. I think it's like 800, 900 pages. Very interesting reading. But we're going to read from manuscript 31, verse 5 and onward. It says, "The first land on earth wherein men dwelt was not Kayamu," which is interesting because here they have the word Kahemu. And I believe I looked up that word, and it means something like watery land or something thereabouts, if I remember correctly. It was a land out beyond the salt waters. To this land came the immortal spirit in the form of a radiant one from heaven, who had left his more enlightened place to dwell among beasts in the lower kingdom of sorrow. Who does that sound like? In some mysterious way, he became incarnated as man. How, we know not, but he founded the race of man. It is not as recorded in tales told for the ignorant. First, let me tell you that he did not found the race of man. He found humanity here already created. But remember, I read from Psalms 82 and a couple shows ago talking about how the fallen ones, the rebel angels, in their rebellion against the Most High, being cast out from the upper heavens, they were placed under the authority of death. And as the angel had said to Adam, and death which the Most High had brought to him, he has also brought to you, O Adam. And so when our ancestors fell, they also were placed under the authority of death. In the day that you touch thereof or eat thereof, ye shall die, which is exactly what happened. Adam died before he was 1,000 years old. A day unto the Lord is as 1,000 years. All right, so let us continue. None knows in truth the old motherland or where it was. There are tales, but they disagree. The 9 bows say it was southward. The learned are not united in thought. Some say towards the west, where the sun now sets, while others say towards the east, where the sun rises. Southward are great mountains and forest monsters, and men covered with hair. Here winds are formed within the earth. They issue forth from a black cavern. It is a place of chaos where water, soil, and air are not separate. The old motherland could not have been there. To the left-hand side, there is a great wilderness, the land of Amua. The old motherland could not have given birth to such as these. To the right hand is the wide plain of man-eaters, which stretches out to the far reaches of old Kaimu. This was barren even in the oldest times. To the north of the wilderness, the land is occupied by deformed men and dwarfs. Where amid this could have been the fertile pastures and plowlands, well watered from the sky river, where men lived in peaceful content? The old motherland was never there, nor, as some say, in the waters beyond which boil at the extremity. Beyond the wide river there once was a land graced with all riches needful to men, crowned by many walled Meru. But it was not the land of our birth. Now there's so many things here that I need to touch upon, because having written the book Paradise Sides of the North and the Mount of the Congregation, in that book I published most intriguing text called the Inventio Fortunata, which is a 14th century historical treatise on the location of the Rupus Negra, which is the Black Rock. And it's a mountain said to be at the center of the earth at the North Pole, and that it is surrounded by a whirlpool. And it's said to be made of lodestone, which is magnetite, and that nothing can grow on it, and that it extends from the sea all the way up to the very throne of the Most High God. And that this place is also referenced as Mount Olympus or Mount Zion, Mount Meru, and called the Mount of the Congregation. And this is the mountain by which all of the fallen angels and the sons of God gathered when they were called to have counsel with the Almighty. And this is the place that Lucifer, son of the morning, Hal-El in Isaiah 14, referenced as the place where he wanted to exalt his throne above the stars and the clouds of God, to place his throne in the sides of the north and above the mount of the congregation. And yet he was cast down to the sides of the pit. And his domain, instead of being exalted and in the high heavens, is rather in what we know to be the abysmal chasm, the navel of the earth, the bottomless pit, which enters down into the interior of the earth, also called Sheol. And so this Inventio Fortunata also spoke about how even the king of Camelot, Arthur, how he had ventured to this place. And even Odysseus and Jason and the Argonauts, and there's many stories of them encountering this place called the whirlpool, the sea monster they call it Sharpradis. But anyways, this creature is none other than what is referred to as Hivelgamer, the navel of the earth, the whirlpool that lies at the center of the earth, surrounding the lodestone mountain called Rupes Negra. And it is this cavity, this vortex, this whirlpool, which causes the high and the low tide. And it is also this area which the Antichrist will release the locust army and the giants, which are coming to bring punishment against those that are not written into the book of life at the end of days. And in that Inventio Fortunata, he says that one of the individuals that was successful in reaching this area and coming back alive, he reported that there was a land of pygmies living there, much like this here. It says the land is occupied by deformed men and dwarves. And also that there were said to be giants and one-eyed giants, which we know to be cyclops. So it's intriguing that this text mentions all that. And it also speaks about this many-walled Meru as being there. And also the Sky River, because it is the Arturian Lake and the four rivers coming from the Tree of Life that are said to descend down into paradise, which again is at the North Pole. So continuing, it says, northward the home of the cool breeze, but beyond the lands which skirt the salt water are the one-eyed peoples and the giants with white hair and eyes. Here the rocks and stones are of the whitest marble, and the trees bear white fruit. Thus in the whiteness the eyes of men are blinded in their youth, for even the grass grows white. Before this is the land of Hasugia, a place unproductive and barren, where fruit never appears on the trees and crops will not ripen. How could the old motherland lie in this direction? Now, doesn't it sound like this area, this region surrounding what is the extreme north, where it is said to be paradisical, that this was a land barren and covered in ice? Continuing. In the old books, it is said that the old motherland was ruled by the Queen of Light. Who is the Queen of Light? In the stories of the Anunnaki, it is Inanna or Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven. Now, in the original, before even the creation of the world, the Holy Spirit is the Queen of Heaven and also the Mother in heaven. But we had a false pantheon, an unholy trinity come forth, and it is made of Osiris, Ishtar, and Horus. And so you got to keep that in mind. And these deities, these gods and goddesses, they actually did exist. And so here the story of this women deity is brought forth, who was supreme above all. The temple tales tell that the lesser gods came to dwell among mortals when the mistress of brightness ruled in Kalathi, that they were sheltered in temples and priests were appointed to minister unto them. It is said that places of instruction were set up within the temples, but few men were taught the inner knowledge. It was rightfully held that it would be a danger to those without wisdom, and it had to be safeguarded. Is this not the tale told in the Book of Beginnings? It is said that Kalathi lay within the borders of Kayamu, but could it not have been the land of similar sounding name outward from Pontus beyond God's land? Is it not set up both that they were engulfed in fire and water? In the Book of Beginnings, it is said the generations passed, and a vast amount of knowledge and wisdom was accumulated and preserved in purity. It was the heritage of mankind, but though man had learned to cherish the light of truth and walk wisely with it, nevertheless, then as now, false priesthoods flourished. They pandered to the carnal desires of the underdeveloped and exploited the weaknesses of the ignorant. Their iniquity built up a vast weight of evil in the netherworld, which projected itself into the material of earth, so that the powers which upheld it became unstable. This caused all the southern part of the old land to sink down into heaving waters. So again, their involvement in evil, which is exactly what the Emerald Tablets say. Oh, goodness. Actually, I'll bring it up after. I don't want to spend time looking it up now, but I'll share with you again that portion after the break. The disaster was brought about through the ascendance of evil rites which were awakened. The dead were rife among the carnal minded and ignorant, while those who remained steadfast on the harder road of spiritual development had fixed their eyes on the light ahead, ignoring the pitfalls at their feet. It was then, even as now, will man ever learn. So here you have them performing these spells, the sorcery, where they awaken the dead. And without a doubt, we were warned. Against such activity. Now, I am going to read just that one quick passage from the Emerald Tablets about what they were doing as well. Speak I of ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows. Speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below us. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earthmen. Only through blood could they have formed being. Only through man could they live in the world. And so here again, it's telling you that they were performing this dark magic. They were offering up blood and conjuring these entities who were interdimensional and formless. That's from the Emerald Tablets number 7. So continuing, we'll do probably another paragraph. This was the aspect of the disaster as written in the book of beginnings. There were openings in the land from which evil vapors poured forth as a mist, descending upon the people like a mantle. It spread out and covered the whole face of the land. The tongues of the people were stopped and they became dumb with fear. The ground trembled beneath them and great tongues of flame shot up. The whole land heaved and rocked like an ocean wave. As it rose and fell, it groaned and shook. The fires which strove beneath burst forth to be met with shafts of lightning striking down from heaven. A thick black cloud of smoke filled the land, and men were smothered in dust as the setting sun rested on the horizon. It could be but dimly seen beneath the cloud as a fiery red ball. When it had gone, a gray, dense darkness prevailed, lit only by great sheets of lightning. The waters broke heavily over the land, sweeping it clean. The plains and cities were covered, and new shores formed around the mountains. So here you see the cities were covered. I mean, this is exactly what it said in Jeremiah, which I don't have that passage before me. But remember, there was yet no man, and the birds of the heaven had fled, and the cities of the wilderness were broken down thereof. I mean, sounds similar to me. All right, continue. The waters mounted up until all that moved and lived was covered. The land was submerged. Mountain tops alone remained above the rush of uplifted torrent. Whirlwinds blew and brought cold winds, which cleared away the dust and debris. Mud banks were formed, and the mountain mouth remained open to spew forth vile vapors. During one long, awful night, the doomed land was torn apart and southward sank out of sight forever. few more minutes. A wise man has written, this was not mountain-girt Kalathi or age-old Ramakui. This was the land out in the green waters where the sun sets, beyond Keftu near the lands of Henbua. It is then said, they came through the marshes and across the wild mountains beyond the barren places of stone into a new land called Encheta. Here grew the great life tree known even in the days of our fathers. This is the tree of strange aspect, like unto no other. Though in the days of our fathers it was barren and enclosed in flame. All right, we'll be right back for final portion.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. We just found out we will be having a son, and we are excited to grow our family and to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out the children's store at sacredwordpublishing.com.
And found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth, we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose. We lost as indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands, all but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past, our lapses, and with it are much of the facts of imagine that gods came in alien glasses.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a final segment. And I'm going to finish reading from the Scroll of Thoth, and then I was going to get into so much other stuff, but there's just simply not going to be enough time. And I think that this manuscript is intriguing enough that it will at least give you an idea for what you might look into and study in looking at these other manuscripts that I did make mention of. Perhaps I'll read a little bit from a different portion of the... Well, let's see how far we get. Let me finish this first, and then we'll see where we are. All right, so continuing. This is about the destruction of the land. Now we know that the life tree grew in Talis, which is towards the lands of the dawn, by Pontus. Therefore, could not the old motherland have been found hereabouts? Not all was inundated. Now, this is also very intriguing because we see that even now, like I was just speaking to Hebrew Hawaiian about this, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. We were talking about, because they live in Hawaii, and you have the lands there in Hawaii that make up, the different places where the people live. Maui, Kauai, Oahu. But these lands, which as it says here, not all was inundated. And how in the previous portion it said that, the mountain tops are still above the sea level. And so these places are connected to and still hold and have the ancient stories connected to them, and which connects the ancient motherland of Mu all together. That if the sea levels were, I don't know how much they shifted and how far up they came, but in some places like in Yonaguni, off of Japan, the coast of Japan, I believe the water there is like 90 feet deep. And so if it had receded some 90 feet, that temple, that huge megalithic structure of Yonaguni would be above water. And I think there were many places like this, a lot more than we know and have considered. In fact, I would go as far as to say that there are more lands and cities beneath the waters now than have been constructed by modern humanity above what is the new sea level. Because you have to remember that we've been here according to the Second World Age and that duration some 6,000 years. But the fallen angels, according to their own stories and the timeline that they relate, which you can find connected to the Sumerian kings list and to the kings lists which are found in various parts of the world, even that which Berosus makes mention of, that this kings list has a timeline of 432,000 years. And so the fallen angels have been here on the earth for a very long time. And so we wonder why they have such advanced and high technology. And it's not because they're some, wise culture and civilization from distant star system and they didn't just turn on their warp drives and end up here in this time-space dimensionality. No, these entities have been here on the earth with us and preceding our inhabitation of this world. They have been here for a very long time. And they have had all that time to utilize and to learn and to create technologies which seem magical to us. Because we don't even understand, the more profound aspects of science like anti-gravity and, things like that, that we haven't acknowledged, much less perfected. There are so many things that have been ignored and controlled because the elites, which, again, it is these entities which are ruling over the masses. They are the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. And they are controlling the technology and that which is leaked. And so they want the masses to be dependent on energy which they control and can manipulate and charge and force us to utilize in supporting the economic system that the matrix of Satan has put into place. The whole point of economics and the system that we live in is to cause people to struggle and to cause people to have to work and have to dedicate their time, their space, and their efforts to surviving within that system. Satan does not want you to have free time to study and read the scriptures or to contemplate the larger reasons and purpose of our being. He wants you to be purely occupied in the distractions, the entertainments, the vain amusements that he has created in order to keep your mind occupied on nonsensical and irrelevant things. He does not want you to consider the kingdom in any manner. He wants you to be fully occupied with struggle and the need to survive day to day, to make enough money to pay your bills, to feed your children. This is where he wants everybody to be occupied with the material world, with how much stuff, we can buy, how much stuff we can have, how many cool new toys. All right, let me continue. It is said that men came out of the devastation. Behind them, the land sank and the earth shook. Mountains split apart and crumbled. Where once there had been a valley, now stood a mountain. The air was filled with smoke, and hot rocks were hurled down from out of the sky. Men choked in brimstone. Great winds howled like 1,000 unearthly wild dogs. They'd left all behind them and came across the wild places to the land of refuge. Was not Kamu once known to some men as the land of refuge? Therefore, the whereabouts of the old motherland is not unknown. It is said that when men came from the old land, the everlasting stars rested where earth meets heaven. But none knows how many lifetimes have passed since then. Thus, it is not impossible to discover where the old motherland lay. Therefore, there is hope, and men need not despair, for the secret may be rediscovered. When once again the sacred things rest in the old land from whence they came, the days of disturbance will cease, and once again men will live in peace. Men go forth to seek the road. All is not lost to us yet. The Scroll of Thoth from the Colburn Bible. All right. Wow, there's so much that I want to do. Share with you. Let me just share this portion from the Emerald Tablets so that you can go and you can read it for yourself. Because as I said, it also gives an accounting of what I talked about with the destruction of Atlantis. It says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amente, set down for the guidance of those that are to come after. These records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. In the great city of Kior on the island of Undal, in a time far past, I began this incarnation, not as the little men of the present age did. The mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather From eon to eon did they renew their life in the halls of Amente, where the river of life flows eternally onward. 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led into light, and as many times have I ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power renewed. Now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. But in a time yet unborn will I rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me. Then beware, O men of Chem, if ye have falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast you down from your high estate into the darkness of the caves from whence ye came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north, or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon ye. Remember and heed my words, for surely will I return again and require of thee that which ye guard. Great were my people in the ancient days, great beyond the conception of the little people now around me, knowing the wisdom of old, seeking far within the heart of infinity, knowledge that belonged to earth's youth. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwell among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. And of all these greatest among the children of men was my father Thothme, keeper of the great temple, the link between the children of light who dwelt within the temple and the races of men who inhabited the 10 islands. And so I'm going to stop there. But it, again, it goes into great detail as to the story of Atlantis and how it was destroyed and how the people, the Atlantean people, had to split. And also how they had to run. Because the Most High was bringing judgment. And it was catching up to them. And the things of which they were involved, the magic and the sorcery, the offering of blood, these were things which the Most High was not appreciative. All right, we have a few minutes. I'm going to go to the chat room and I'll see if there's any questions. If you have anything that you would like to bring forth, go ahead and put it in the chat. Put it in all caps. D. Smith says Lemuria was another sunken continent. That is correct. I've not read a lot of, like Helena Blavatsky, but a lot of people that are into, that kind of New Age and the Masonic studies and texts, she covers a lot about the Lemurians and Atlantis and things of that nature. And so, yeah, there's a lot. I was talking about these underground bases and cities that had already been and were created. And I was telling you about a moonlight gathering that took place on the 28th of July and had a feature speaker, Alma Trulat. And Terry Carter had live streamed this on YouTube, that you need to watch that presentation that Alma Truat gave about the ancient technologies, the underground cities, the tunnels, the trains, the magnetic trains, which are connected and link all the continents of the earth under the ground. And that he also spoke about the Basiji Mountains and how there is this passageway that connects that Romanian mountain, this pyramid, with the Egyptian pyramid, and how it also is connected to that place in Utah. And so I invite people to listen to the shows that I did with Peter Moon as well. And those are fascinating. That was a fascinating interview. Shay Cheney says, all this is blowing my mind in several directions. And yeah, it has a way of doing that. Shay also says that Ham is the father of Egypt. Yes, Ham, the ancient name Kim, is derived from Ham. And we know that Ham was the third son of Noah from a second marriage, and that he was married to Nama. He was told to take Nama as wife, who was the sister of Tubal-Cain, the twin sister of Tubal-Cain, and that the seed of the serpent, the Canaanites, would be preserved through her. You're welcome, Hebrew Hawaiian. She says, thank you so much, Zen, for explaining this all. I love the extra text to back it all up. Yes, I do as well. Oh, you're asking how to spell. It's his name, Alma Truat, ALMA, True TRUE, OTT. And you should check him out anyways. He's also on Revolution Radio, which is the station that hosts my show, Momentary Zen, on Wednesday nights. I believe he comes in on Friday or Saturday. You can check the schedule there to catch him, but he's been live streaming for a long time. I did have the privilege of interviewing him twice in very, very long time ago. Search is called The Moonlight Gathering, Pamela asked. And I don't have a link, but you can search by Terry Carter. Terry Carter, he does a lot of shows and videos on lost treasure. And his stories are absolutely mind-blowing, some of the people that he brings forth. So yes, and we have a question from Donna Smith. Are there ghosts of people or just familiar spirits, demons, etc.? That's a great question. And I do think that people, especially murderers and those that perform really, like doctors that perform experiments on people, children, especially in psychiatric wards in the old days, that they did terrible things, and that because they don't have salvation, that they may linger and that they become demonic entities. And we know that the ghosts, the spirits of the giants, that they are also wandering spirits. They don't have part in salvation. And so for the entire duration of the Second World Age, they will have to look for bodies to possess in order to interact with people in this time-space dimensionality. You are welcome, Pamela. and Penny and Alex and B and who pressed Ham to. Oh, you mean Noah? You can read it in the writings of Abraham. It was actually Lamech that told Noah it would be okay for him to marry Nama, and that the Most High pressed him to take Nama to wife in order to preserve the serpent seed through the flood. Question from Justin: do you believe in zombies? I believe that there are all kind of supernatural weirdness and esoteric things that happen, especially when people involve themselves with the occult and things like voodoo. So yeah, I think there's all kind of weird things that happen and things that we don't understand, and that, you know, even the dead brought to life in some kind of manner that isn't, you know, the way that Christ raised out Lazarus. Yeah, there's all kind of possibility. All right, thank you everybody. Good night. Be blessed. Love you all.